One. Hi, everybody. We are live. Sorry, we're a few minutes after 8 o'clock, but here we are. I'm here with the Make Me Royal One Day web series, and I have a super, super special guest today. My friend Jennifer Laurence. She has been my friend since college. She's amazing, and she has a company called Luxury Lifestyle Logistics, and they're amazing. And she's a butler. That's I'm probably messing up the title, but I will let her introduce herself, and she is going to give us normal people who are super excited about the royal wedding tomorrow a lesson in dining etiquette. And then at the end, I'm going to show you how you can do that with things you probably already have in your house. So she'll show you the fancy way to do it, and I'll show you how to break it down if you're a last minute mom like me. So take it away, Jen.
Well, thanks everyone. So thanks Nicole for that great introduction. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I went to hospitality school with Nicole, and I have loved all things home and hearth as long as I can remember. True story, when other girls were getting Cosmo magazine at 12 and 13, I literally had a subscription to Martha Stewart Living. So I think I was predisposed to be in all things home and hospitality. So after our undergrad, I went to a European style butler school. There's only 5 butler academies in the world. I went to the Toronto, Canada school, and I have to say I graduated top of my class because I absolutely love floral design and table settings and really serving people in this way. So I've been privileged to serve dignitaries and heads of state, CEOs, Fortune 500 leaders, and even some celebrities. So tonight we're going to have a little bit of Dining 101 with all of you to help you prepare for the royal wedding this weekend. What would be a great introduction would be to have a little libations. So I'm going to show you how to properly pour wine for your guests and how to do that respectfully. So the first thing I like to talk about is the corkscrew. It's really important to get what they call a waiter's corkscrew, and it's the one with the double hinge here. So if you don't have the double hinge, you're going to break the cork, and it's going to be very difficult to actually get the cork out of the bottle. So after I went to butler school, I did a year of wine sommelier school. So hopefully for all of you tonight, I can open this bottle of wine without any problems.
You'll be great.
So
Step a little bit to your right. The other
this
one.
way?
Yeah.
This way.
Yes. Keep going. A little bit more. Yep. Okay, good.
Perfect. So the first thing, if your bottle is cold, you just take a towel and wipe off the ice. You can even actually hold the bottom here, the indent with your napkin. And you take the knife portion and you take the foil and you go run your knife around the foil to remove that foil cap. And you just do that like so, and then you put that to the side. You put the knife away so you don't hurt yourself, and then you take out the actual hinge portion and the corkscrew. You put the corkscrew in just like this, and I like to give it about 5 turns, because if you go through the bottom of the cork, that's actually a bad thing. So I like to just give maybe about 1 inch left. I'm going to set this down just a second. You put the first hinge on the neck of the bottle. You hold it with your thumb, and you just press up. And then with the second hinge, you go all the way forward until it slightly stops before the cork is open. You release the lever, and you don't want to pop the wine or champagne all over yourself. Champagne is a slightly different technique. So then at this point, you take your whole hand and you slowly ease up the rest of the cork. See, I didn't quite do it just enough. You give it one final turn, and it elegantly comes out of the bottle.
Oh, elegantly. Hey.
If you're presenting the cork to your host who has ordered the wine, or someone in the seat of honor that you want to pour first, you would put the cork at their place setting. You don't necessarily, if you're the one receiving the wine, you don't have to smell the cork. You're not going to be able to tell if a wine is bad by smelling the cork. That's just kind of a weird, fussy thing that people used to do back in the day when wine was not as reliable. So just leave it there as a souvenir, and you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to talk about this from both perspectives. if I'm pouring the wine and if I'm receiving the wine. So we're going to kind of go back and forth between the host and the hostess. So again, I'm going to face the label to the guest. So you as my audience is going to be the guest here. And I pour them a small taste because if they're ordering this or if I'm giving this as a, they're giving a toast or something, we do want to make sure that the wine is acceptable. So I'm going to also pretend to be the guest. And I receive the little taste of wine. I can smell it briefly at this point and take a taste. And then I nod to the person that, yes, this is an acceptable bottle. We're going to be partaking in it, and that's fine. And at this point, if you're the hostess, there's something unique that you need to do. You need to not pour the rest of that glass for that individual, and you pour everyone else at the table about a half a glass. And when you've gotten all the way around the table, you come back to that person, and they're the very last ones that you fill the rest of the glass for. Making sure not to touch the lip of the glass with the bottle. And then they receive their wine. Cheers.
Ooh, cheers.
So, Nicole, I'm going to let you take it away a little bit while we move to our next segment of the evening, which is kind of the dining place setting section. I'm going to reset the camera, and I'm going to give you a moment to talk.
Awesome. So since yesterday on my first Make Me Royal series, the post that I have out, I made a mistake. So she is not going to be the princess. She's going to be the duchess. So newsflash, I still don't know what the difference is. They all wear a tiara. It's all like, looks the same to me. But that's something that's new. And I would love to know if anybody else is either going to the same viewing party as me tonight. We'll be there at 3:30 in the morning. I'm even bringing London. I couldn't decide what earrings to wear, so I put one of each on. So I have these dangly chandelier looking ones or a more of a classic drop earring. So whichever ones you guys think I should wear with my pajamas and my pearls, which these are real pearls that my husband got me. Props to him. And I wear them with my fake ones, so it looks like they're all real and I have more. So let me know which earrings I should wear with my pearls and my pajamas for the party that we go to tonight, which is going to be, it's a live royal wedding viewing party. We'll be seeing everything through the E network. And then I'm also DVDing or DVRing the PBS, which is the official one with Meredith and Matt Baker that's in London. So I'll be able to see all the angles and not miss anything. And super, super exciting news is that in about a week and a half, I'll actually be standing in front of Windsor Castle. Obviously, the wedding will be over, but because I flew myself out there, all I can afford is a magnet. So I'm going on the hunt in Windsor at Windsor Castle for the perfect Meghan and Harry magnet. So yeah, that should be fun. And so I will be doing live broadcasting while I shop for my fancy magnet souvenir as well. So it'll be exciting, but looks like Jen's ready over here. Yeah.
Am I in a good spot? Can you see me okay?
Actually, put it down a little bit more.
Okay. Sorry,
yep.
folks, I can't see my view, so that's
no worries. That's Facebook Live. Yep, so go down even more. Is that right? Yeah, so everybody's getting super excited. A little bit more, like 2 feet. A
little bit more?
Yes.
Our assistant when we need one.
Yes. All the way in San Diego.
How's that?
You'd like face it down towards the place setting more.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Perfect. Yay. All right, go for it.
All right. So you can see me okay now?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, here we have a beautiful place setting, and there's a couple things that I'd like to talk about. Oh, I forgot one thing. So when I graduated Butler School, we actually received our Butler stick. Now, this is not the actual Butler stick. I didn't have it with me tonight. But if you've watched Downton Abbey, you might have seen Carson measuring things. So at a formal place setting, there will actually be a ruler and a way to calculate out how to make the table setting lovely. And basically, the symmetry is the most important thing. So first and foremost, we use the butler stick to align our plate. We want about an inch between the end of the table and the end of the chafing dish, or I'm sorry, not the chafing dish, the charger, or anything else that's on the plate setting. And then we work out from there. We typically only set 3 courses. Any more than that, and it just becomes too ostentatious with so many different silverware pieces, and it just runs into the next person. So typically, even at a fancy event, you'll only have 3 settings out, and then the staff will re-silver you for the next course. And you could do 20 courses that way, as long as they're going to be re-silvering each time. So we've got our glassware here. We have the water glass, which is always at the head of the knife. And then I've set it up here for a European setting, of course, because we are celebrating the European wedding. So they're going to start you off with whatever wine goes with the course that they've selected, and work diagonally from there. So I have a white glass, a red, and then a champagne flute, because maybe we'll celebrate with a little dessert and sparkling wine afterwards. If you're declining a wine for that course, you can just let the server know and just kind of wave your hand over when they go to pour, because after several courses of wine, you might be a little tipsy and you don't want to, lose out on the good graces of the queen, right?
Or trip on your dress on the way out.
Trip on your dress, correct. So that is it for the glassware. In a continental setting, the glassware would actually be in a triangle, which takes up a little less space. And it's funny now that the rules of place setting have evolved, that they're not strictly setting it for European or continental service. So you can actually mix and match in this way. If you don't have enough room to do the diagonal, you can actually do a little triangle at the top of the water glass.
Very fancy.
So,
when you said continental, explain what that is for everybody.
So just like with everything, when Europeans were dining, they had a very certain way of doing things. And when we came to the Americas, we evolved it to a more casual, informal environment, just because we were Americans and we wanted to rebel a little bit against, the monarchy and things. But it was also because of practicality. There were wars. We didn't have all the china and dishes that the Europeans did, because we were bringing things over on ships. So there's actually a great history about china and silverware and all the reasons why we do certain things. And it's based on practicality, and sometimes it can even show your class or status, what you do and what you not do at the table. So there's a very rich history, and essentially speaking, now it's just boiled down to stick shift versus automatic, a continental setting versus an American setting.
Beautiful. So let's say, you sit down to a setting such as the one that you have. There's probably like 2 forks going on. Like, can you explain to people where, how they should not feel so nervous? Like, what do
Sure.
they do? Yes.
Sure. So for purposes of this demonstration, I have put everything on the table. This is actually a little bit more of a banquet style table. In a more formal setting, you would just have the charger here. And then the staff would be bringing in the courses to you and placing them on the charger, which is kind of acting like a little placemat. But let me go through the rest of the table setting here. So I have set this for 3 courses. Working out in, I anticipate we're starting with a soup. So we have the soup spoon and then the bowl. We would use that and then remove it.
No slurping, right? No slurping.
Well, we can come back to that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
We have the salad and the salad fork, and then the staff would remove that. And then working out from in, you've got the fork and the knife, and then they would remove that. And then I also have a little bit of coffee and dessert we can talk about later. So for purposes of this demonstration, again, you would just work from out in, and I can talk a little bit about each course and the things to do and not to do when you are dining.
Please.
Perfect. Yeah. So we have seated ourselves. Hopefully a nice gentleman or someone has helped us to our seat, and we've scooted in a little bit. The first thing you want to do is remove your napkin from the table. At a formal place setting, the silverware will not be under the napkin, because then you have to slide the silverware off. That's kind of silly.
Who
So
wants to do work
who wants to do
themselves?
that? So the napkin will be separate, or I also have, for demonstration purposes, the napkin might be in a beautiful napkin ring like this on top of the place setting. So you can remove the napkin ring, place it up by the salt and pepper, and put it in your lap. But I actually wanted to go a little deeper into how to use the napkin. So I have ironed a flat napkin here. And this is really helpful to know because there's a very specific way to use the napkin on your lap. You remove it from the table and you see this opening here and the fold side. You actually place the fold side away from you and the flap side towards you. So the reason for this is underneath the table, you want to open it gently and dab your mouth, but then replace it on something clean so that the food particles don't get on your clothing or your beautiful dress. So that is the proper way to use a napkin. So you just open it once, you slide it underneath the table, and then you've got that opening to be able to dab, not wipe, but dab gently. And then you replace it, and it's always available for you clean to use.
Got it. Now, if you get up to go to the restroom, do you set the napkin on the chair, on the table?
You set it on the chair until the end of the meal. And at the conclusion of the meal, you can put it on the table, but that is kind of a faux pas in the middle of the meal because you don't want to take your germs and set them on the table where everyone else is dining. So yes, if you need to excuse yourself, you get up, you put it on your chair. Hopefully a staff member will help you to the restroom or help get up, and they'll actually refold your napkin for you to signal that your place setting has been cleaned or attended to while you're away, and then you can come back and be seated.
Very nice. Awesome.
So we can talk a little bit about the courses here. Like I said, our first course is soup, so I'm going to remove a little bit of this, these place settings here. And when the soup arrives, it's going to be very hot, obviously, so we don't want to slurp it. But there's a specific way that you
can't sue the queen if it's too hot.
Right. So we don't want to slurp it. We don't want to blow on our soup. And so there's a very specific way that we dip our spoon into the bowl for proper etiquette. So you take your spoon and you dip away from you. And that is because if you dip towards you, it's actually going to form a drip. But if you dip away from you, it doesn't form a drip. So,
whoa.
Little
mind blowing right now. Okay.
So you gently dip away from you, not clanking against the sides or anything. And then you just gracefully don't move your head to the food. You bring the food up. You just kind of lean in and you take a sip and then you put it back down. You can rest in between, but make sure not to clang again. And then with each course, when you're finished, you put the silverware at the 4 o'clock place setting. Or like if the bowl or dish was a clock, you put it about between 4 and 5 o'clock. So not straight on towards you would be 6 o'clock, just slightly to the right. And that indicates to the staff that you're finished, and then they can clear it. If this dish had come, if the soup had come with a little saucer underneath, you would rest the spoon on the side of the saucer like that, and then they would take it away. The rule of thumb is that the staff is going to lower left and raise right. So that's a little fun trick to remember, that when they're lowering, you want to lean the opposite direction so that they can lower the food in front of you. And then when they're clearing, they should come to your right side and clear it away. And that's so that no one bumps into each other while they're trying to clear all the places.
Beautiful.
Fun.
Very good.
So that was the soup course. And now we have the salad course. Interesting, because we've got 2 forks and 1 knife here. So people ask, well, where is the knife for the salad course? In upper crust societies and a continental style of service, there is no knife for the salad. And here's a little bit of trivia, and the reason why is because true silver, if you were wealthy, the vinegar in the salad dressing would actually tarnish the silver. And so
Wow.
it was a way to determine your status, whether or not you actually had true silver at the table. So in continental service, you're only given a salad fork, and you're meant to use the actual bread from your bread plate to push the lettuce onto your fork. So you never cut a salad with a knife. For that reason, and also it's just impolite to use a fork and knife to eat a salad. And if you need to finagle a piece of lettuce onto the fork, you can do so with a small corner of bread, and
Okay.
then eat the salad delicately, put the salad fork down, and then we're finished with the salad course.
So the queen would never serve a lettuce wedge then.
Probably not. No.
Okay.
That would be difficult, yes. So we're thinking like a lovely Caesar salad or something like that, very delicately cut. And if they serve the salad without a knife, as they do in the continental service, they would know to cut the lettuce, small enough so that it's not impeding people's way of eating it correctly.
Amazing. Woo.
Perfect. So I'm going to set these off to the side here. So now we've gotten through 2 courses successfully, and we have the entree course. The entree is typically served to you with the protein towards you, and then you've got the fork and the knife that you can use. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how to use the fork and knife and 2 implements to eat and what the variations are. The first variation, of course, the continental way of doing it, is you take the fork in your left hand upside down like this, and you take the knife in your right, you make small little cuts, and you push the food onto the back of the fork, and you eat like this, backwards, with one pointer finger down as such. And
So it's
again,
not a shovel. Got it.
it's not a shovel. Yeah, we never eat like this. So we're eating, it's a more refined way of eating. And again, something from the history books, when the forks were turned over upside down like this, you could actually see the silver demarcation on the back of the fork. And that, again, in a subtle way, told your guests how wealthy you were because you could afford real silver. So that's why they got into turning it upside down like this. And it became a more refined way of eating because then they could show off the silver demarcation throughout the entire course. So if you've got protein, you put a little bit of protein, a little bit of mashed potatoes. You can even put peas onto the mashed potatoes on the back there. You make a nice little bite and you bring it up to your mouth and you have a bite. It's polite to leave just a small little bit behind, even if it's delicious. You don't want to lick your plate clean. So you all,
Never pick up your own plate and don't lick it. Got it. Okay.
correct. Because if you ate it all, it would tell the host or hostess that you were still hungry and that they didn't give you enough. So
Oh,
it's polite just to leave a little bit left. And then again, 6 o'clock being here, we have 2 implements now. So you put the fork here and the knife here. And it's actually helpful if you intertwine the tines here with the knife so that when they pick it up, the knife doesn't clang away. So that's the continental method. In America, of course, we don't all eat upside down with our left hand. So the
or upside down at all, clearly.
yeah. So we've talked about the European method. The continental method is, again, cutting with your right hand with the fork upside down like this, because most of us are right-handed. You're going to get more leverage, but you actually have to switch. Then you put the knife down, you switch to your right hand, and you pick up one bite of food and you eat it with your right hand.
Not
So
upside down.
not upside down if you're eating in the continental method, only in the European method. So those are the 2 acceptable ways to use both the fork and knife. And just make sure that your knife is not very saucy if you're going to put it back down onto the charger or the tablecloth. And then when you're cutting, you can actually rest it on your plate, I think, is a better method, and then switch and eat with your right hand. I don't have that concern because I actually eat the European style. We were taught in Butler
You
School,
would.
and I typically, just was naturally drawn to eating with my left hand. So when I was taught that method, it became second nature. So I always then have the knife in my right hand.
Okay, so let's talk about pretty much every celebrity American that is going to be at this wedding tomorrow.
Yes.
And all of the news stations are talking about how fast the queen eats. And once she's done, you're done. So, how are you? I mean, you're going to really have to perfect this upside down non shovel motion if you want to get any food in at all. So, really leaving something
Correct.
on your plate's no problem because you'll probably be starving and wondering where the closest McDonald's is.
This is true. This is true. Yes. So, and especially at those very long tables, it's difficult to see the queen. So you kind of have to rely on your fellow guests to, not be chitting and chatting, and just go ahead and eat so that you're done with the next course. Funny about talking, there's actually a protocol for who you talk to when, and the queen does demonstrate that. For the first course, she talks to the person on her left, and everyone around the table talks to the person on their left. And then for the second course, she talks to the person on her right, and everyone does the same so that everyone gets equal conversation with both dinner mates.
What if you don't like who you're sitting next to?
Well, I just would hope that you don't make that known.
Got it.
So
Okay,
I have
wait.
a
So
couple.
we didn't talk about the slurping. Slurped or to slurp or not slurp? That is the question.
No slurping. No
No.
slurping. And even your wine, we don't want to make a big show of swiveling it around and smelling it. It's not wine school. It's to be enjoyed delicately. And we want to make sure that, we don't make a scene at the table. I do have one other tidbit here before we move away from the entree course. I've got some salt and peppers here. And it's really important when someone says pass the salt or pass the pepper that an elegant, refined person knows to pass both regardless of what they've asked for. So the salt and pepper come as a pair, they're friends, and you never want to separate them on the table. So even if you say pass the salt, pass the pepper, we all now know as refined individuals that you're going to delicately pass them both the salt and the pepper.
Got it. Okay, now my question would be, well, I guess essentially if you're being served like this, you really don't have to reach for anything because it's not family style besides the salt and the pepper. But let's just say it is family style and somebody says, "Can you reach me?" At what point, like, how do you know if you're too far to, from something to get it and then to ask the person next to you to get it for you?
It's typically, if it's further than the person to your right or to your left, then it's time to ask that it be passed. The good rule of thumb is that a salt and pepper shaker or a salt and pepper mill should be one for every two people so that they only have to pass at one place setting. You don't want to have one salt and pepper for 14 people because then it just passes around and around the table. But let's say there were a big dish of chicken here or something like that. You would want to make sure that you're passing it amongst the people that are next to you. And then if the food is being served, it's typically served clockwise. You take a small portion for yourself and you pass it to the next person. In fact, you can hold it for the next person, which is very nice, and then they can serve themselves so they're not struggling with the hot dish and spilling it everywhere. So if it's particularly heavy, it's nice to hold it for them while they serve themselves and then they hold it for the next person. But again, that's a little more casual. There are actually 8 different styles of table service. It may be too much for this particular, video, but there are various ways in which to serve, from buffet style to butler style to hostess style. What the royal wedding will be for tomorrow is actually called ballet service or synchronized service. Well, they will have one server for every guest.
What?
Yes. So they'll probably, I don't know if all 600 people that are at the wedding or will be invited to the reception later. I know that they're going to have a dinner. But let's say that there's 200 people, they will have 200 servers.
And then the servers stand behind them as they eat, and then they all go forward
At the same
synchronous style.
time. Yes.
Woo!
And so they look at their captain, and in perfect synchronicity and perfect unity, they put the plates down, all 200 people in a row.
Okay, now if I was there, I would be so impressed. My everything in my life would be like, take a picture. So obviously you're not going to want to bust out your camera to take a selfie of the table, picture,
No.
video, anything. So where do they put their phones and their purses? Are they under the table?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So if you have a clutch, hopefully your phone fits in your clutch and you put it underneath your napkin on your lap so that it doesn't, travel too far. If you have a handbag with a handle and it can set upright on its own, you put it to the left-hand side, touching your feet all the way underneath the table, because you don't want the server, when he steps forward to serve you from the left, to trip on your handbag underneath the table. And as a matter of
Wouldn't
fact,
that be synchronized?
yes, and as a matter of fact, I have done that, and it was extremely embarrassing. And the person I was working for at the time was mortified, but I did not see their briefcase underneath the table, and I basically went flying. So even the most refined of us make mistakes, on occasion. So we don't want to have that misfortune for the next person. So make sure that it's far enough towards your feet that the staff member doesn't trip.
And that you don't bring a floppy jalopy bag to that wedding.
No purses, ladies. We want handbags. In Nordstrom, there's no purse department. It's only the handbag department.
Oh, so, that's a good one to remember. Yeah. Awesome.
So we have enjoyed the meal, and I could talk a little bit about dessert and coffee if you'd like.
Yes.
We've got a couple other options here. So it's interesting, again, the European and the continental method of table service, but you notice that there was no dessert spoon or fork on the place setting. In an American setting, the fork and the spoon will actually be at the top of the place setting. Maybe we've seen that before. And that, again, is something that, depending on banquet service or space allotment, you can intermingle the continental and the European method. But if it were to be the case that this was at the top of the place setting, at a formal event, the server would actually pull them around for you, and they would magically be on the right side, which is kind of fun.
Magically.
So the way that works is that the fork is pointing to the right, the spoon is pointing to the left, and then they come around to each individual and pull them down for them. You never touch any of your own implements, and you never push away a plate. It's always the server's job to do that. So now we have a spoon and a fork. Perhaps we have some cake here, cake and ice cream, because it's a wedding. And you've got two things now to eat European style. You can eat a little bit of cake with the ice cream, and you use the spoon like a knife because it's on your right-hand side, and you can eat like this. Or you can use one at a time, like the continental method or American method, and eat like this.
So you're not eating the cake and ice cream with the spoon. The spoon is the shoveler, like the knife was, onto the fork.
Correct. So at any respectable meal, coffee will be the last thing served. And at this point, the salt and peppers would be removed. Everything would be removed. All of the wine glasses except for your water glass. And the water would be the only thing would remain, and the charger would be removed. So basically you have a clear place setting, and then they've got coffee and sugar and creamer.
Did they use the crummer? That's my favorite tool.
Yeah. And you've got this delicate little teaspoon. And if you're invited to tea with the queen, it's important to know how to do this delicately as well. Of course, they'll say 1 lump or 2, and the sugar and the cream and all that. And the way that you stir it in is not in a circle, but you actually go back and forth between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So that doesn't create a vortex.
No tea tornado.
No tea tornado.
Okay.
So you just go between noon and 6 o'clock and just delicately stir in the sugar and the cream. And you put this to the side, and then you bring the saucer up. At a tea service, you bring the saucer up and you take a sip, and then you put it back down.
Hold on. I got a teacup. I'm going to practice. 1 second. Here we go. I got one just for this. I had to go and buy it, girl. Okay. Right here. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Okay. So now pinkies up, no pinkies up.
So that's a very interesting question that has a root in history as well. Um, the pinky was meant because the china cups were so hot because they weren't proper china and they had no handle to balance, first of all, and secondly, to help to cool the cup as you brought it to your mouth. It actually looked more like a sake cup or something of that nature. So it was basically a handleless little teacup. But with the invention of the handle, it's impolite to lift the pinky. So again, that was like a class
Oh,
thing
that's
because
almost like lifting not the pinky, but another finger. Got it.
right. So the the classes would be able to determine if you were trained with your pinky method because they could tell you had a lesser quality china and you didn't have the refinement to have the handles placed on them, and therefore were new money or not as wealthy as you were indicating or something like that. So yes, with the invention of the handles, it's not necessary to bring the pink, put any kind of pinky anywhere.
And you put your pointer finger in like so.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And then
Sip.
you just lift and
Nice.
then gently put it back down
So
and
always lift with the saucer. I've never, okay, that's new.
lift with the saucer. And that's typically at a tea, because sometimes a coffee will not be served with a saucer. It'll be served in like a bigger mug and they'll just serve it to you without the saucer. So if it's without the saucer, then you can just drink it, with the without raising it. But if it's tea, typically the saucer comes with it. It's all about what implements the hostess has chosen to use for that particular occasion. And that's why it gets so complicated because there's an oyster fork, there's a strawberry spoon, all these types of things.
A
And
strawberry spoon? Woo.
there it is.
Get
There it
out.
is. So it's important to just work with what you have and make sure that you're working within the rules of dining etiquette so that you don't make a faux pas. But really, I think if you just use your best judgment, you'll be fine.
Amazing. This was so cool. Okay, so before I get to my little table set up here, what do you think if you were working for the Queen, because essentially you have the credentials to do so, what do you think that all of those servers or like what's going on tonight before the wedding?
Yes. Well, as I indicated with the butler stick, setting a table for 200 people is incredibly challenging. That could take 8 to 10 to 12 hours alone, because every glass has to be perfectly in line with every single other glass. In butler school, we actually learned how to use a laser pointer and point it all the way down the table to make sure every single glass was in line.
Whoa.
So it's crazy. And so that butler stick has to make sure that all of the place settings are in line. There's actually a rubric for how many inches each guest has, how many inches from the back of the chair to the table, how much fabric can be on each side of the tablecloth. It gets incredibly complicated. And so you can imagine, I've already shown you almost 10 implements just for one person. If you times that by 200 people, just setting the table alone could take all day. So I would imagine that polishing and flowers and candles, it takes a village. It really does.
Wow, that's amazing. And then obviously there's like a kitchen on site and everything. So how long is a day? Like how long do you think tomorrow like the staff will work on average?
For tomorrow, I think they'll probably work 20 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, but for maybe just like a state dinner or something that is still formal, but not like all the eyes of the world is being videotaped, maybe like a 16 or an 18-hour day. It's incredibly labor intensive, and every glass has to be polished. They have to polish the silverware, make sure that all of that food comes out at once and it's hot and beautiful. I mean, it really is amazing the lengths they go to have it picture perfect.
Oh, I'm sure. And then last, do you have any advice for maybe some of the Americans that are going to be really nervous walking up to a table that's so perfect before when they're probably used to not that?
Yeah. Um, It's this is amazing that an American is marrying into the royal family, and I think that it's just remarkable the way that Americans entertain differently than Europeans, and so yes, typically we don't dine in this manner, but I think if they just go slow, if they take their time. It's really important not to clink things when they're putting them down because they're nervous. So make sure they're maybe not overly indulging in the wine before they sit down.
Don't drink
And
too much.
don't drink too much, and just make sure. I think the biggest faux pas would be to spill something or drop something or clink something and have it crack or break. So as long as they're very careful with the implements and not going too quickly where they might knock something over, I think most people will be just fine.
Oh, amazing. Yay. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to give you a tour of so Jennifer sent me a picture of a standard place setting which I will post with this video on Facebook after so you guys can see. And would that be the continental setting or what is that setting that you sent me?
I think that it's a continental setting. So continental meaning the continent, America, and European being, basically everyone else. So the only way you can distinguish typically are the glasses and how many or how they've set the silverware. So everything else is pretty much the same.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, let me show you what I've done for the similar setup, but maybe everybody doesn't have, for people that don't have fine china or, lots of sets of glasses and you're kind of just working with what you have in a house. This is more kid style. So welcome to my table. We have guests and everything. There's a unicorn, a whale, but I've set up the table. I think if you can see it, according to your picture. And I wanted to show you that anybody can make a centerpiece out of anything. That is an Imodium AD children's bottle spray painted with glitter as a vase. Super easy. Dress up pearls. Can you see those? Dress up pearls for the centerpiece. And in case you're really, really broke and you want to do this, these napkins are from Little Caesars. That's right. Last time I ordered pizza, that's what we use. And those are paper rings to celebrate, the wedding and everything like that. A little decoration on the wall won't hurt you. That's just a feather boa. And then we have, if you can't find any decorations at all, I suggest you go to Home Goods or TJ Maxx or something. Literally, these were $2 and $1. So super cute. Cheers, dears. Sip, sip, hooray. So maybe not as fancy as the royal wedding will be tomorrow, but something that you can definitely do with what's in your house. Everything here is paper plates, and I'm sure your kids, if you have them, have stuffed animals. Just throw some tiaras, which all of the guests are wearing tiaras, even Shamu, who's from Texas and is also wearing a tiara. So yes, I hope you guys learned, all of the viewers learned lots of stuff. I see some comments that are amazing. We'll post the little the dining setup for you. And if Jennifer has any more tips, she'll be able to comment with those. And can you tell us what your website is so they can go to that for the refined people who might be able to hire you to do something like this for them?
Sure. So I worked in private service for many years as a butler. Here in North America, we call it an estate manager or household manager. And now I have left the world of private service and I'm consulting for the people that are still working in those homes and the principals that want their homes to run more efficiently. So I'm an estate management consultant. And I have the privilege of working in homes every day to help them manage operations more effectively and learn beautiful table settings like this. My website is www.luxurylifestylelogistics.com. I do have a blog. I'm working on updating it more regularly. So if you'd like to click on the link and follow me, I would love that. And Nicole, I just for you poured some rosé sparkling wine because I know how much you love pink. So thank you so much for having me on your show. I am absolutely delighted. You're one of the most lovely, charming people in my life. And I don't know what I would be without you. So thank you so much for all you do for everyone. And cheers to a happy royal wedding.
Oh, cheers to you too. Ta-ta.
Ta-ta.